Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a warm welcome to the stage, Dave Barry.
Thank you. Is this on? Are we on? Thank you. It's really great to be back in Rancho, Mirage, even though, let's be honest, it's kind of a shithole. No, I'm just excited that in the new climate, it's okay to say shithole. It's last week, it was like the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post. CNN was like all shithole all the time, you know. So it's a bright new era, and I'm happy to be. No, Rancho is a wonderful place. I always feel obligated. I can't point to the book anymore. A little bit obligated to defend my city. I live in Miami. Moved there in 1986 from the United States, and Miami has a bad reputation. I know that. Every year the Zogby organization does this poll where it asks people what they think of various major metropolitan areas, and every year Miami, some things people like about it, but it always gets categorized as a potentially dangerous and violent place, which hurts us, those of us who live there. You know, we want to track those people down and kill them, because it's really pretty great, except during hurricane season, which runs from June through the following June. We just went through. I know you've had your natural disasters out here in California. We had a rough hurricane season in Miami. We had Hurricane Irma, which I don't know if any of you have been through what it. It's a different kind of natural disaster. I think with the earthquakes, they just come and all of a sudden they happen. You know, with hurricanes, though, the news media have an opportunity to make you crazy. And it starts usually a couple of weeks before the hurricane gets there. They just show you the blob on the radar, and they're basically giving you two messages. They cover in South Florida. You would not believe how intense the coverage is. Basically, two messages. One is don't panic. Two, you're probably going to die. And they're telling you, do things, taking all the objects out of your yard. We bring in disgusting objects out of our yards because they tell you that the hurricane winds can turn any object into your yard into a deadly missile. I've always wondered what would happen if you left a deadly missile in your yard. Would the hurricane turn it into a harmless object? We don't. Somebody should conduct an experiment to find that out. But anyway, the real craziness gets going a few days before, maybe a week or a little bit less before, when after you've been watching these people on the TV tell you how, not to worry because you're going to die over and over and over and over again, and everybody gets crazy and you go to the supermarket and you buy things you will never in a million years use. People come home with like many 9-volt batteries, and your spouse will say, well, we don't have anything that uses 9-volt batteries. So, well, that's all they had, Okay, you're just panic buying, and you buy a lot of food. They tell you need 7 days worth of food, so everybody buys tons and tons of food. We already all have 7 days worth of food on our bodies, most of us. But you buy it, and like, my wife came home with lentils. Like, we've never, and as long as I've never said, hey, it'd be great tonight. Lentil. It's like a bag of gravel. I'm not even sure what lentils are, You can maybe use it to hit looters. I don't know. And then the thing is, so now you have all your food, and it's still 3 days till the hurricane gets there. It's not there yet. So what you do is eat all the food. And I think it's your body saying it wants you to be so heavy that even the winds can't turn you into a deadly missile. I may have told the story before, but the worst hurricane, Irma was a few days without power. It was not terrible. The worst hurricane for me was Andrew, 92. Andrew went right over what was my house. And that was unpleasant for quite a while after that, except for one element, which was my dogs. At the time of Hurricane Andrew, I had 2 dogs. I had a large Maine dog named Ernest and a small emergency backup dog named Zippy. No, you fool Californians don't know. You need 2 dogs in case your main dog goes down in the hurricane. But so anyway, prior to Hurricane Andrew, I let Ernest and Zippy out every morning via a 2-stage procedure. And if you've ever had a dog, you know that going out in the morning is a very big deal to the dog. Dog is very excited. Dog can't believe you thought of it, even though you do it every single day of the dog's life. Whoa, that's a great out. We'll go out, you know. And so anyway, Ernest and Zippy was a 2-stage procedure. We'd open the back door, and they would run across the patio, which had a screen enclosure around it, which you need in South Florida to keep the mosquitoes from stealing your patio furniture. And so I'd open the back door, they'd run across the patio to the screen door and wait, very agitated, very excited. And then I'd go over and open the screen door, and then they'd be out in the yard. So that was the procedure. We did it every day for years. Back door, screen door, yard. And they learned that the way dogs learn a procedure. So anyway, comes Hurricane Andrew, and the screen enclosure is orbiting the Earth. It is gone. But the screen door was still there. So some of you are dog owners, you know where I'm going with this. It was about a 2-week learning curve. It's absolutely true. I would open the back door and they would run to the screen door, which had nothing around it but yard, because that was the procedure. This is why I think the least realistic television program ever made was Lassie. Because here you had, the premise was you had this brilliant dog, brilliant collie dog, Lassie, living on this farm with this unbelievably stupid farm family. These people were so stupid they never left the kitchen. Like every episode they're looking out the window going, how come all the neighbors have crops? And it was a good thing they didn't go out, because if you recall Lassie, whenever anybody did go out, they got into some life-threatening danger. Especially the little boy, little Jeff, who later became little Timmy, and they didn't even notice that. That's how stupid these people were. He would go out and fall into the quicksand. Like every episode he's in, who the hell buys a farm with that much quicksand on it, you know? So typical episode, Jeff/Timmy is sinking in the quicksand. Lassie goes racing back to the farmhouse, barking, whimpering, scratching on the screen door, obviously very upset. This is the plot of every single Lassie. A family of even minimal intelligence would at some point figure out what was going on. So, little morons in the quicksand again, didn't he? But not the Lassie family. They would go, what's wrong, girl? Are you hungry? Now, a real dog would go, yeah. I'm hungry, I'm always hungry. She'd come in, she'd eat, spend the rest of the evening licking herself. She'd forget all about Jeff/Timmy. The end of that episode, he's bubbles in the quicksand. Tune in next week, they get a new little boy named Billy, you know. But Lassie would make them go rescue him. And then they come back to the farmhouse, everybody be happy at the end. Lassie would be in the corner filling out the agricultural subsidy forms. But the point is, I'm making here, I'm sure you forgot, is that Miami is a wonderful city. We have a new attitude down there, new tourism promotion slogan, come back to Miami. We weren't shooting at you. And also, you think about it, Miami and Rancho have a lot in common. Miami's warm and sunny. Rancho's warm and sunny. Miami is hip. Rancho is hip replacements. Miami has a diverse population. Rancho is warm and sunny. The list just goes on and on. No, I really do love it here. I love it here for, if nothing else, the wonderful audience here, and I can kind of rely on you year after year to forget the jokes I told the previous year. For example, I told that joke here last year from this bank. But also, I can relate to, because I'm getting old. I turned 70 in July, so I'm now 70 years old. That makes me a septuagenarian, from the Latin septu, meaning everything, and genarian, meaning hurts. But I am 70, or as we say in Rancho, jailbait. And it's a big milestone. There's certain milestones you reach in your life as you age. The first one of, like, when you really start to feel a little old is when you turn 50. Those of you can maybe remember that. You turn 50, and then it's like a horrible thing that happens, and it happens to everybody. You get a letter from ARP. ARP, which is the last sound you make before you die. ARP, you know. Hurry, doctor, he's ARPing over here. But also, it's an abbreviation for the American Association of Retired Persons standing in line ahead of you, asking for a discount on every freaking thing. And I have nothing against ARP. It's a fine organization. It was hard for me to be asked to join it because I'm a baby boomer. Many of you were baby boomers anyway. The key to the baby boomer demographic is no matter how old and pathetic and wretched and senile and drooling and incontinent we get, we think we're cool. We still think we're cool. So it's hard to be asked to join an organization whose membership includes these guys. I see them all the time. I live in South Florida. Guys who wear their waistbands up around their armpits. Apparently, so in case they ever need emergency open heart surgery, you can just unzip the fly, you know, right there. But the other thing about in being, like, when you are 70, when you're getting all, you sort of come to accept that all the stereotypes about being 70 are true. Although every joke people make about old people, about young people make about old people, is true. The way old people drive in Miami, I don't know if you have this here. A lot of people drive. I call it the seeing eye wife system. You know what I'm talking about? Where the couple drives, they're always together, but the man drives. Always, the man drives. Why? Because the man drives. Problem is the man can no longer see. So he's outsourced the seeing part of the driving to his wife, who sits next to him. It's an arrow. Not that way. No, you know. I'll tell you the one area in my life as a writer where I can see the generation difference most clearly, when you do a book signing, and at the end of the book signing, often there's a line of people who want their picture, to get their book signed, but they want their pictures taken with you. Everybody's got a phone; they want a picture with the author, and this can happen sometimes dozens and dozens of times in a typical book signing. So over the course of a year, I'll have this same process repeated maybe thousands of times. And here's how young people do it. They hold up the phone and they take a picture. Here's how old people do it. They hold up the phone. They frown at the screen for about 30 seconds. They say something like, "Wait, I think it's on Google." Then they stab at the screen for a while with a forefinger. Then they hold up the phone again and say, "Okay, smile." Then they frown again and say, "Wait, I think it's making a video." Then they stab at the screen some more. Then they hold up the phone again and say, "Okay, smile." Then they frown and say, "Wait, I think they took a picture of me." then they give the phone to a young person who takes the picture. That's literally, I've seen that, I don't know, many times. But anyway, there are good things about being older. I am a grandfather, a grandparenthood now. I don't know why you're applauding me. No, but it's been very cool watching my son Rob is 37 years old now, watching him become a parent. So I have all these vivid memories of when he was little. One of them involves the day I won a Pulitzer Prize, which was a big day for me, but it was kind of an odd day for my son. He was then 7 years old, and I was living in Miami. I was getting ready to go to Key West with Rob, and he was very excited because when we go to Key West, we would always rent a motor scooter, and he would ride in the back, and we'd just spend hours riding around Key West. He loved that, so that was one of his favorite things to do, go to Key West. So anyway, we're getting ready to go to Key West, and I get a call from my editor at the Miami Herald saying, you need to come in right now for a meeting. And I said, I can't, I'm going to Key West. And he goes, no, Janet Chesmer wants you in here. It was the editor of the Herald. Wants you here now, it's mandatory. And I'm like, oh, gee. And I said to Rob, well, we're going to go to the Herald first, and then we're going to go to Key West. Okay. Well, it turns out that was all a setup. They had already been informed that I was about to win a Pulitzer Prize. I was one of two people at the Herald going to win a Pulitzer Prize. And it's a big deal. They gather everybody in the newsroom, but they wanted to keep it a secret from me, have it be a surprise. So I get there with Rob, and there's all these people gathered in the newsroom. And somebody says they're about to announce something. And I said to Rob, this is, this is very cool. Evidently, the Miami Herald's going to win a Pulitzer Prize. I still had zero idea that it had anything to do with me. And so they're just about to make the announcement, and an editor who was not in on the surprise came over and shook my hand and said, congratulations. And at that moment, I realized two things. One is that I was going to win a Pulitzer Prize. It was wonderful. But the other was that we weren't going to go to Key West because there's, all this stuff you have to do, and they have big ceremonies and parties and stuff. So anyway, I looked down at Rob and I said, Rob, bad news. We're not going to go to Key West today. And his face just fell, and I said, but I'll buy you a Nintendo. Because he'd been bugging me about to get this game, and I'd say no because I was being a tough dad and wait till your birthday and everything. And he goes, really? And I go, yes. And at that moment, two things happened. One is Rob jumped into my arms to give me a big hug, big smile on his face. Janet Chesmer, the editor of the Herald, announced that I had won a Pulitzer Prize, and they took my picture. So the next day, the front page of the Miami Herald was pictures of the two Pulitzer winners. My picture was me with Rob with his arms around me, this gigantic smile on his face. And everybody said the same thing to me. He said, it was so great how excited your son was. Well, and of course, he had no idea about what any Pulitzer Prize. So anyway, just to complete the arc of that story, Rob is now a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. And I know, I tried. And 2 years ago, he was part of a team of reporters who did a story on, big investigative report on Medicare fraud, and he won a Pulitzer Prize, or that team did. So yeah. So that was pretty cool. And so anyway, now he's a dad. He has a 3-year-old. I think I told this last year. I was as the grandfather, I was chosen for the honor of being the Sondek. My son's wife is Jewish, as is my wife. My wife is Cuban Jewish. Jubin, they call them. No, that's what they call them. They didn't come over on rafts. They parted the Caribbean, but. But anyway, my son also married a Jewish woman, and they had for their son, my grandson Dylan, they had a bris. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the bris, it's a weird thing where a male Jewish child on the 8th day is ritually circumcised in front of all friends and family, and then there is a deli platter. It's right there in the Old Testament. There will be pastrami. Anyway, and sometimes on the same surface as the, yeah. So anyway, I was chosen to be the sondeck, which is the guy that holds the baby. It was not an easy thing to do. But anyway, so it's been good. It's been great being a grandparent. Some of you are grandparents. And everybody talks about how wonderful grandparenting is, and it really is. There's nothing like it. From the moment that your grandkids come into your home until the moment about 8 minutes later when you wish to God, please take them away, because they have so much energy and we just don't anymore. The worst for me is the floor. Follow me here. Like, when you get to be a certain age, you're not really that involved with the floor anymore. Just walk around on it, but you don't view it as any kind of entertainment. But they want to be on the floor all the time. So if you're going to be a grandparent and you're stuck with taking care of you're going to get down on the floor. And to me, it's a lot like North Korea. Like, it's a hostile environment. You go down there, you don't know how you'll ever get back, Somebody's going to make a fortune someday inventing like little vests you put on 3-year-olds that brings them up to you, They just float around. And the other thing is, how many freaking times can you read The Cat in the Freaking Hat? Anyway, so I feel like, let's see how much time. Okay, we're good. I want to talk a little bit about the political situation because I want to bring you down. No, it's a crazy time. We just got, how'd you do in the government shutdown? Pretty brutal, huh? For 3 days. 3 days, nothing happened in Washington. Nothing got done in Washington for 3 days. I'm like, what, I don't know why they view that as a threat. But in Washington, it's viewed as a very serious thing when they shut the government down. The rest of us, like, shut it down. We don't, But I think that the current political mode of the country can be summed up by the following, that for a little while there, Oprah was being seriously talked about as a candidate for president of the United States. I read I think it was today or yesterday, that she said she doesn't want to be the president. Good for her. But anyway, I did want to, I have Oprah experience, and I just wanted to share it with you. It is involved when I was on a book tour. Back when Oprah had her daytime show, if you were an author, that was the holy grail. Because Oprah could get her people to do anything that she wanted them to. If she told them to buy your book, they would buy your book. So I was on a book tour. I don't remember what the book was that I was on tour for, but I was in St. Louis on this book tour, and my publicist called and said, an Oprah producer called and wants you on the show tomorrow in Chicago. So we'll set that all up, but you need to talk to her first to make sure this is going to work out for what they want to do. So yeah, great. So I called Oprah's producer. I was very excited, and she said, "Okay, we're gonna do the show is going to be called Things We Do in Secret, what you will do is come on the show. Each of the guests will come on and admit to some wrongdoing, and then make it right. And so, do you have something like that? It's like." So I'm thinking, like, because you want to be on the show. So I try to think of something bad I'd done that I could talk about on television. And what I came up with was, and I told the producer this little story, that a few years earlier I had been at a Hyatt hotel, and there was a sign in the bathroom that said, quote, "Our towels are 100% cotton. Should you wish to purchase a set, they are available in the gift store. Should you prefer the set already in your bathroom, a $75 charge will automatically be added to your bill." In other words, they're saying if you steal our towels, we're going to charge you $75. So I stole the sign. And I thought it was pretty funny, and I put it in our guest bathroom. And guests would get to enjoy it, and so I told the Oprah producer that, and she said, "That's perfect. So you'll come on the show, you'll tell that story, and then we'll give the sign back. We're going to have a little box there. You can put the sign in." And I'm thinking, oh no, because I'm thinking like, well, I'm in St. Louis. The sign is back in my house in Miami, and I have to be in Chicago tomorrow. I don't know that I can do this. And the producer's making it sound like, well, if we don't have the sign, we can't really make this happen. So I'm thinking, and then it occurred to me, I was staying at a Hyatt hotel in St. Louis. So I stole another sign. This one said like no smoking, but I figured nobody would know. I would just pull it out of my pocket and throw it in the box. So I now have stolen 2 signs in the name of making things right on the Oprah show. So if someday, I always fear that at some point the hotel police will catch up with me, and I'll be sent to hotel prison where every 30 minutes all night long housekeeping pounds on your door. It's like. But anyway, the point, if you'll do anything to get on TV to sell a book, authors are whores that way. And any author who tells you different is lying. This is probably the most humiliating thing I ever did to get on TV. It started with a column I wrote. I used to write a lot of columns based on articles that people would send me, and I got a letter from a woman who was reading a consumer Q&A column in the Jackson, Mississippi Clarion Ledger. And she said, this struck me as unusual. So she cut out, sent it in. And the Q was something like, for Christmas, I gave my 2 daughters rollerblade Barbie dolls. And recently they were playing beauty shop with my 4-year-old son. And one of them ran her rollerblade Barbie on his underpants, and they set them on fire. And I think Mattel, the manufacturer of Barbie, should warn consumers of the danger of this product. So that was kind of a little bit vague what that was all about. And so I read the A, and the entire A was, we contacted Mattel, and they informed us they're no longer manufacturing rollerblade Barbie. So now I'm really curious what this is all about. So I decided I would, for the purpose of getting a column, get hold of a rollerblade Barbie, which I was able to do, and even though they don't make them anymore. And it's like a Barbie doll, but instead of shoes, she had rollerblades, and the front wheel of the rollerblades was a polyurethane wheel, but the rear wheel was a sparking, from a flint, like a Zippo lighter. So when you roll rollerblade Barbie along, sparks would shoot out of her rollerblades, which is an idea dreamed up by somebody now working in Mattel's Syrian operation. Because you can see the danger, you don't give a child a sparking toy. And I figured out what happened. They were spraying hairspray, and the hairspray ignited, and that's what happened. So, but in journalism, we like to check our facts. So I conducted an experiment. I went out one evening in my driveway with a set of underpants and the rollerblade Barbie and some hairspray. And if you want to try this at home, you will get your best results with Rave Extra Hold. I sprayed a bunch of it on there, and I scooted the rollerblade Barbie. In fact, the underpants did, in fact, burst dramatically into flames. And then my neighbors, the readers, happened to look out their window and see this fire and came running out over to and if you think it's easy to explain, why you're squatting in your driveway over a pair of burning underpants, holding a Barbie doll, and you don't know much about journalism. So I wrote a column about that. And somebody at the David Letterman show saw the column. They called me up and said, would you come on the David show and set fire to... And again, this is how pathetic we are, authors. I said, of course, So they fly me up to New York, and they wanted to have a rehearsal in that big theater where he had the show. And it was, flying up there, I'm thinking, this is going to be a lot of fun, crazy, wacky thing. I'm going to set fire to a pair of underpants with a Barbie doll on the David Letterman show. It sounds like fun. But then you get there, and there's like 9 million, stage hands and assistant producers and assistant producers. And there was a guy from the New York City Fire Marshal's office, because So it's like a lot of serious people, and none of them had read the column at all. None of them had any idea. The only guy who knew anything about this was the segment producer who had called me up. So the rest of them, I'm just some guy showing up, and they had gotten hold of a rollerblade Barbie and a rollerblade Ken, and they had a bunch of underpants, boxers and briefs, and a bunch of different kinds of hairspray on this big table, and then all these like really serious New York people gather around, and it's not like a fun mood. And then, the fire marshal guy is watching. So anyway, I'm trying to kind of liven it up because this should be fun, right? It sounds like it should be fun. And so I spray it, and it's really, really cold in this theater, which turns out to be a significant thing. Letterman likes it really cold. And I spray the thing, and I run the rollerblade, and nothing happens. It won't. And they're starting to hear this muttering. What is this about again? Does Dave know about this? What's the, And I'm trying to. I'm saying, isn't this kind of weird? Like I'm trying to set fire to a Barbie doll with underpants, and I can't even do it. And they're not laughing. Nobody's. They're like thinking, what else are we going to do? Because this is supposed to be a segment on the show, and and it's just getting less and less funny. But the highlight came when the New York fire marshal guy came over to me, very serious man, and we had been trying for a while now to get these underpants to catch a fire, and he goes, "You should use Ken. You're getting more sparks with Ken." So he's a professional. But anyway, it finally did work. I was able to set fire to a pair of underpants with a Barbie doll. But that's the point is, the things you do. Another example of humiliating things I've done. I got an article once. Again, a lot of the columns I wrote came from readers sending in articles, and it was a story about a death of an animal at the Denmark Zoo in Copenhagen. And the animal's called an okapi, O-K-A-P-I. It's like an antelope, African antelope. And it keeled over and died. And they concluded that the cause of death was that there was an outdoor opera rehearsal taking place like 3 football fields away. And that the noise from the opera startled this okapi and killed it. Keeled over and died. So the obvious question is, what were 3 football fields doing in Denmark? No, not the question. The obvious question is, and I wrote a column about this, that look, if opera can kill an animal at 300 yards, imagine what it could do to human beings at close range. Perhaps we should ban this dangerous activity. And I've gotten a lot of hate mail over the years. And you would think opera people are classy, but the nastiest hate mail I've ever gotten in my life, like a typical, "Dear Mr. Barry, fuck you." I mean, like the opener. So it was like really angry mail from the opera people. But I got one letter from the Eugene, Oregon Opera Company saying that they were putting on an opera called Johnny Skiki, which involves a corpse. And they wanted to know if I'd be willing to come to Eugene and play the corpse in the opera. And I said, yes. Again, you'll do anything for a column, So I went to Eugene from Miami, which is not easy. You have to get a series of smaller and smaller airplanes. The last one, they say, we can't fit you and a pilot in there. You'll have to fly that thing yourself. Just look for a rain cloud. That'll be Eugene, And so I got to Eugene, Oregon, and it was a serious professional opera, and they dressed me up as a corpse. It took forever to put all this makeup on, and my job was to lie in this bed like this where these people shrieked. You have no idea. I'm just not a fan, It's just really, they are loud though. They're like NASCAR loud human beings. But anyway, and it's hard. It's really hard to lie still. It's amazingly difficult to do. The thing is, the corpse went on like after a little while, like 15, 20 minutes in the opera. So I'm waiting backstage with the stagehands who are not into opera at all. They're watching a playoff game. NFL playoff game, and it was the San Diego Chargers versus the Miami Dolphins, and I happen to have had an investment in this game. And so I was very involved, and so I'm sitting back there. The corpse is sitting there with and then they said, you got to go on and get in the bed for this scene. They said, and I'm really kind of, because the game's back and forth, all right, back and forth, really close. And the stage hands say, but the bed is right next to the edge of the stage, so we can keep you up to date on the score. So I'd be lying there with the NASCAR singers streaming, and every now and then the voice from behind would go, Dolphins just kicked the field goal. And it's really hard if you're a corpse not to go, like, it's not a big, so okay, we have two choices here. I can tell you one more story, but that I think I might have told here before. I don't even know, because I'm, or I could take questions. I didn't want to. Story? All right. So over the years, I've written many columns, and people have asked, is there one that's your favorite? And there is, and it's not because the way I wrote it; it's because of what it was about. And it's one of the more amazing examples of human beings solving a problem. It's so you can look at it as sort of an inspirational story, overcoming an obstacle. But it's an absolutely true story. And the beauty of it is that the day it happened, there was a TV news crew there to film it. And so this has been preserved forever on the internet. And I say that because people sometimes don't believe this really happened, but it did. It happened as I'm going to describe it to you. And if you don't believe me, you can go on the internet and look at it. You can see a video of it. But anyway, the story involved, there was a storm off the coast of Oregon. And when the storm cleared, a dead whale, had washed up on a beach. It was washed way up on the beach, so the surge didn't take it back. But it was a 40-foot long, 8-ton whale, and it was dead. And it started to rot and stink. And I've gotten very familiar with the story over the years because I wrote about it and talked to a lot of people who were involved in it. But apparently the stench was horrendous, and they needed to get rid of this whale, and they didn't know what to do. So they decided to call in the Oregon Highway Department, which is called the Oregon State Highway Division. And I'm not sure what the thinking was. I guess the thinking was that a whale is a big thing, and a highway is also a big thing. So they should know how to handle that. So anyway, the news broadcast begins, again, you can see this on TV, on the internet. It begins with a guy named Paul Linman, who was then a young TV reporter in Portland, who now is a radio guy out there. But Paul is standing in front of this whale, huge whale, with seagulls walking around. And he goes, you might say they had a whale of a problem here, He's a TV guy. And he then introduces the head of the Oregon State Highway Division crew, which is a serious-looking man with a hard hat, who is going to talk about how they're going to deal with the whale. And this guy doesn't come right out and say they've never disposed of a dead whale before, but you begin to suspect that might be the case when he reveals that the solution they've arrived at is to use dynamite. And sure enough, behind him, they're digging a hole under the whale, and they're putting these big boxes of dynamite under the whale. Now, I don't know if they followed the full highway crew procedure and put the orange cones and the guy with a flag, in case another whale comes along. Then the guy explains what the plan. The hard hat man explains the plan. Here's the plan. We're going to blow up the whale with the dynamite. The whale will then be in little pieces. These pieces will then be eaten by the seagulls and other marine scavengers, and there you will have it, a textbook whale disposal. So the next scene, they have backed the camera up behind a sand dune about a quarter of a mile from the whale. You're looking over a dune, the whale. They've also backed up the spectators, and quite a large crowd of people showed up for this event, because let's be honest with ourselves. If you knew they were blowing up a dead whale anywhere in Rancho Mirage today, you would not be at this Writers' Festival, okay? So, you're looking over the dune at the whale, and it's kind of a peaceful scene. There's the Pacific, there's the beach, there's the whale, seagulls walking around. Then you hear a countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then you hear an explosion. Big cloud of smoke envelops the whale. You can't see the whale at all at this point. And then you hear some people cheering, going, yay! And then you hear one lone voice go, oh my God. And then a smear appears on the camera lens. And then it goes black. Because what's happening now is gravity. Gravity, which apparently no one had informed the Oregon State Highway Division about. Gravity is causing, and I've talked to people who were there that day, and they said this is the most disgusting thing you ever saw. The rotting insides of a dead whale are now coming down out of the sky, all over the place, all over the beach, all over the spectators, well beyond, and some of these are fairly large pieces. And we know this because the next thing we see is the parking lot, where the cameraman has run with fleeing this goo from hell, and he finally gets his camera cleaned off enough to get it running again, and you see a car whose entire roof has been caved in by what appears to be a booger the size of a refrigerator. And when you like to listen in on the phone call to that insurance agent? You say your car was struck in a parking lot by a whale. Oh, a whale from the sky. Then the camera goes back out onto the beach, and there on the beach where the whale had been is the whale. It's a different shape now, but there's still a huge amount of whale on the beach. What there is no longer any of on the beach is seagulls. Maybe some seagull molecules, but any intact seagulls are on their way to Alaska at this point. So what life lesson can we learn from this story? None really. I just would close with words that I think if you face a problem in your life, an obstacle in your life, and you can't figure out what to do about it, for the moment forget about your problem and cast your mind back to that whale on the beach in Oregon. Remember, whatever you do not ask the Oregon State Highway Division to help you. Thank you all. Jamie, thank you. You betcha.